Main Event Maniacs, presented by the Juice Box.
The main event can make or break a show. It doesn't matter how good the undercard is. If the main event is a stinker, the entire card can be tainted.
Here on Main Event Maniacs, we will revisit some of the most memorable main events in sports entertainment history, good and bad, across various promotions and eras of professional wrestling. I'm Jay, and happy to be joined by the animal to my hawk, my good friend and co-host, Brian. Brian, what's up? It's time to come back to the story.
Let's come back to the story, Jay. We talked about part one, as I'll put it, of the story last episode. This episode, we cover part two. Will Cody finish the story? Man, there are a lot of bumps along this way.
Yeah, will Cody even get to the story? It was part of the story of this WrestleMania. It's one of, you'd almost say it's almost convoluted, too convoluted, but it is one of the most winding roads back to a rematch that I've ever seen, man. I mean, rematches between big pay-per-views, big, main events and things like that, all throughout wrestling. We can sit here and list them for hours, of seeing how they're built up and how they get to them. But I don't know that I've ever seen one that took as many twists and turns as this one did.
Yeah, it was wild, man. And we'll cover that as we get to the build-up. But just knowing here, like, we sat there at the end of WrestleMania 39. We knew at some point this was going to happen again. The odds were on that it would be at the next WrestleMania because it's too big of a match not to. And Cody, for the most part, always said he's got to finish his story. Now, he may have gone off a little bit of the road to finishing the story, but he did come back to it. And that's where we're at here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's such a neat thing to see in modern wrestling, to see such a long build up and payoff occur.
Definitely old school.
Yeah, very much. It will remind me of when we grew up and watching this stuff and how long these things would go, and how they would, guys would get an injury and they would just work it into the storyline, and make it work. And I remember once when Ric Flair was out with like a neck injury or something like that, and they, Terry Funk and him were going to have a program after that, but they had to kind of keep Funk busy. But to keep everybody interested, WCW came up with this like top 10 contenders list, and they'd run it every TV show, and Ricky Steamboat and Lex Luger and Terry Funk would just chase each other for those top three spots. But it was a way to keep interest in the championship when the champion wasn't around. And I always thought that was a genius TV idea, and it's no different than what we get here with Cody and Roman, because the easy thing to do would be just spend a year, build it back up, and go part two, right? But we're not going to take the easy route. We're going to do it very differently, because we're going to get an injection of, someone who often refers to themselves as, the shot of adrenaline into your franchise. We're going to bring one of the biggest stars, period, in the world into this thing. And there's going to be a lot of changes and ramifications because of that. And we should mention too, we talked about it at the end of the last show, Endeavor bought WWE. So that changed the ownership. The McMahon's no longer involved. And at this point, Vince McMahon is not involved at all anymore in these things. So this is the Triple H era of running the book and running the show.
That is correct. And very newly Triple H area too, I might add, because up until this point, Vince still was in control all the way, and we'll talk about it as we get here, but all the way to January before WrestleMania. So Vince has still got his fingerprints everywhere, but as we'll talk about, Triple H does take over the book for good, finally, and that's a great thing for the WWE.
Oh, all around it has been, yeah, absolutely. And I am all about that. It's wild to think about, because I did not like Triple H when he was a performer. I never really got into him, but I could tell there was something else going on. Like, clearly the guy knew what he was doing and knew what it was. It wasn't just who he was aligned with, married to, and all that stuff. He knew what was up. And I'll tell you, when I really got onto that, you remember that Tough Enough show that MTV had or whatever? He came in the ring to talk to those folks. And I mean, he lays it out hard on them too, about you're going to piss all over my, friends that are hurt and paralyzed and dead and all this stuff. But the way he said it, it wasn't a wrestler cutting a promo. It was a dude that had busted his back in this business for years and wanted them to realize, when you do this, you sell out and you do all of it.
What's best about that whole thing too is that he came in and he laid it into them, and then he just walked out and left. Like he wasn't there. He didn't
Yes.
answer. Like most of the wrestlers come, they give their little spiel and then they answer questions from the. He just picked his bag up and walked right back out.
Yeah. It's a boss
If
move.
if you ever watch YouTube and Maven, the wrestler who won the Tough Enough one, he's got a great channel where he talks about all sorts of things from his career, and that's one of the episodes he does talk about, and just fantastic insight into that as well. But that's beside the point.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're getting into this here, Brian, and I mean, catch us up. Where do we go in the year in between WrestleMania 39 and 40?
Well, so here we are. Cody Rhodes was unable to finish his story, and the next night on Raw, Roman refused to give him the rematch. Instead, Cody gets challenged by Roman and Solo to a tag match, and the partner will be none other than Brock Lesnar, as we mentioned last week. Brock would end up turning on Rhodes, though, before the match even started, and it kicked off a really good feud between the two. The feud would see the two trade wins before Rhodes bested Lesnar at SummerSlam in the rubber match. Cody would then go on to team up with Jey Uso, win the tag titles at Judgment Day, drop them back the following week on Raw, and then the feud would culminate at Survivor Series with a War Games match, which saw Team Rhodes versus Team Judgment Day. And then this is also the night that, lo and behold, CM Punk returns to WWE. Well, the next day on Raw, Cody would announce that he's entering the 2024 Royal Rumble match, which Cody ultimately won, defeating CM Punk, and setting the stage to, once again, finish the story. Or was it? Cody sure thought so, as at the post-Royal Rumble conference, he mentioned that WrestleMania 39 did happen. If you're me, you can look at that and you could turn and run from it. I want to be back in the ring with Roman Reigns, and I want to finish the story. I'm very big on keeping my word.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious what his mission is. And look, when CM Punk came back, that was a massive pop. And you talk about a guy, again, who just knows ring psychology. Whatever you think of him aside, the dude knows how to work, and he knows how to talk in particular. And I loved at the end of that Rumble match, now he's hurt at this point. He screwed his elbow up in the match. So they're, whether they're calling audibles or not, whatever the story was, he's sitting there going, I didn't come back to lose to Dusty's kid. And then he loses to Dusty's kid. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, that was so good. And I knew it was coming, because at one point I thought, are they really going to do it? Are they going to screw Cody out of this all the way? Right
it would have been so good.
It would have been amazing. But I when he went over, I was like, oh no, they just wanted to tease us with the thought that they might. But it got in my head at that point, Brian, that I thought, what if he goes to this Mania and loses again? Like, wow, that would be a whale of a story to not ever finish the story. Because you got to figure then that's it. They're done.
Yeah, and I thought the same thing, Jay. I thought, well, what if we get this rematch and Cody loses for a second time? I was almost like, that would be kind of cool, but you're going to piss off a lot of people, a lot of wrestling fans, because they want this so bad, and we'll find out that's the case. But yeah, I was with you. I'm like thinking, they should have him lose a second time, because that would just be like soul crushing.
Yeah, right. It's almost like the two soul crushings, two Empire Strikes Back. We can't do it that dark, but they almost do it with us, as we'll see. But meanwhile, things in Roman Reigns' camp aren't all rosy, though.
No. Meanwhile, with Roman Reigns is right. His bloodline is crumbling right before him, and Roman and Solo fail to capture the WWE tag titles after interference from the Usos ends up backfiring. Well, as Roman reached his 1,000-day reign as Universal Champion, Jimmy Uso was about to be removed from the bloodline, as Jay turned on Roman, setting up the Roman and Solo versus the Usos at Money in the Bank. After the Usos lost the match, Jimmy then turned on his brother Jay, costing him the Universal Championship and the Tribal Chief moniker. Rollins would not defend the title until Crown Jewel in November after this, where he defeated LA Knight, and then his next title defense, as we mentioned last time, was him defeating LA Knight, Randy Orton, and AJ Styles in a fatal four-way at the Royal Rumble. So we've had Roman Reigns winning the match at WrestleMania 39 and not really defending his title at all this whole time. I mean, he wrestled against Jay, like you said, LA Knight, and then the Fatal 4-Way with Orton, Styles, and Knight in it. And that's really the only title defenses he had the whole time from WrestleMania up until Royal Rumble. That's crazy to think about.
It is. It really is, but it builds that anticipation up for you because every time he steps in the ring, he's there really just to talk. When he's going to put it on the line, you know it's going to mean something, and you know they're saving it up for something major. Like, okay, if you're going to do that, then that means you guys have got a plan in your back pocket.
Or do they, Jay? Or do they? With Roman retaining and Cody winning the Royal Rumble, everything was set for the WrestleMania 39 rematch at WrestleMania 40. But not so fast. So much has happened in the WWE all of a sudden. On January 26, Vince McMahon resigned from the TKO board of directors. TKO, of course, Endeavor, who bought WWE, as we mentioned last time. And he was out of WWE completely at this point. Like, he's not a member. He ends up selling all of his stock. He can't be allowed in the building. They won't even let him into his office. I mean, he's done. Like, he's out of WWE. You know, The Rock also comes into the picture because he was named a member of the TKO board just 3 days before Vince McMahon had left the WWE and made his announcement. No big deal, though, right? Well, upon Rock's return to the ring, or to the WWE, he entered the ring and stated after a promo that he was going to go get some dinner and wondered if he should just sit down in a booth or if he should sit at the head of the table. Now, this got a huge pop from the crowd, which I'm sure made Rocky think, oh, wow, maybe they want to see this match or something. I don't know. Let's think about that for a while. Well, what if Cody and Roman didn't headline WrestleMania, and instead it was The Rock and Roman in a battle for the Universal title, but also a battle for the head of the table?
Ooh, intriguing possibilities you're laying out here. Yeah.
On the February 2nd episode of SmackDown, after a couple weeks of Seth Rollins trying to convince Cody to fight him instead of Roman, Rhodes came out and said that he would not challenge Roman at WrestleMania 40, but he knew someone who would. That's when The Rock came down to a thunderous ovation from the crowd and shook Cody's hand before Rhodes left the ring and a stare-down between Roman and The Rock commenced. Almost immediately following the show, social media lit up with a massive backlash to Cody being removed from the WrestleMania 40 main event and not being able to finish his story.
Dude, your timeline exploded. If you were watching this show, you wouldn't have known anything else in the world happened for 24 hours because it was just the algorithm got flooded with all of this stuff. Now I have to back up a sec on this because they went through a lot, and I love Seth Rollins. I've said before, he's the modern day Jake the Snake and Macho Man because he doesn't need a belt, but when he's got one, he's always great, and he's just so good with every program they give him. They got the right guy to try to go out there and sell it to the crowd of like, you don't need that belt, you need my belt, because they've reestablished this world heavyweight championship now because they decided, hey, we're going to have a champion that fights. This is a Triple H thing. And so he's got that belt, and he's trying to sell it to Cody, and pick all this up. And they've had some heck of matches too, so why not? But you can tell the crowd's not buying it. They're like, no, that's not what we want. Like, yeah, that's nice, but it's not what I want. It's like, I ordered a ribeye, and you brought me a chicken breast. Well, I mean, okay, it's grilled, but it's not what I ordered. So, and I mean, that's what's happening. And like you said, social media absolutely went nuts after this.
Oh, they did. And you're totally right. Like, watching them try to sell a potential Seth versus Cody match, that would have been great a year before. But that feud was over, and fans really wanted to see, after Roman beat Cody at WrestleMania 30, Cody get his revenge. And to pull that out from under the rug just really rubbed people the wrong way. I love The Rock going on the talk shows and talking about the Cody crybabies.
Yes, we have Pat McAfee.
Oh, yeah, just hilarious stuff. And WWE really had to figure something out here because we knew at Royal Rumble we had Cody and Roman, right? That was in our pocket. But now we've introduced The Rock, and he's gotten thunderous ovations from the crowd until now, in which he's getting major backlash, and people are completely turning on The Rock.
But people are watching, they're
Oh, yeah.
engaging, they're buying tickets. Business is good, Brian, and
it's real good.
That's when you're like, "Ooh, we injected adrenaline into the franchise."
Yeah. Well, about a week later, at the WrestleMania 40 kickoff event in Las Vegas, The Rock and Roman talked about how they would clash at WrestleMania 40 in the main event. This prompted Cody Rhodes to come out and make it known that he wanted his title shot against Roman Reigns at Mania, and The Rock needed to back off because Cody earned that by winning the Royal Rumble match. Then they went back and forth trading insults and then insulting each other's family, to which The Rock slapped the taste out of Cody's mouth and let it be known that he now has a problem with Cody Rhodes. With The Rock joining the Bloodline, the stage would be set. The Rock and Roman would challenge Cody and Seth in a match on night 1 of WrestleMania. The outcome would determine the stipulation for night 2's main event. If Cody and Seth won, the Bloodline would be banned from ringside. But if the Bloodline won, it would be Bloodline rules, which is basically anything goes. Roman and The Rock picked up the win on night 1, and everything was set for the main event of night 2. Cody Rhodes would now attempt to finish the story once again in a Bloodline rules match.
Yeah, can we talk about The Rock when they decided to turn him on Cody, or as he'll put it, I decided to make all the decisions in the world and turn myself on Cody. Yeah, say what you will about Hulk Hogan.
And I called Triple H and told him that we should really consider this instead.
I called the U-Man and told him to do that. Yeah, it's funny. So I told Tom Brady to throw that pat. That's what The Rock's doing these days, which is funny, because he does put it over. But when he goes into something and you give him a line and a character, he's going to run it. And he put Cody Rhodes through hell for months. Yeah. I mean, beat the tar out of him on television, threw him up against the bus, got a little color on it, whooping him with the belt. Had Mama Rhodes put on a weight belt so he could taunt her with it. I'm like, we're gonna get Mama Rhodes on a forklift now? I mean,
Vince Russo's not here.
Yeah, true. Hey, bro. But I mean, really, like they let The Rock tear into him in a severe way, and good on Cody for going with it. Said, all right, I'm going to take all my lumps. We're going to get it all here. And good on Seth, too, because we should mention that night 1 thing. Seth had screwed his knee up bad and didn't need to be wrestled. So he drops his belt and then comes into that tag match. And, it's still going to be a part of night 2 as well. He played along for all of this, too. And be noted that, that's a team guy right there.
Yeah, I mean, he injured himself at the Rumble as well. And he was hoping that he wouldn't have to miss Mania because he's missed a few in the past. And he said, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to wrestle at Mania because it's that important to me to be there and to defend the title. And, he did a great job. Especially knowing that his knee was as bad as it was. Now, they played it off that he was cleared to wrestle and, he rehabbed it himself. But then, as we know, he took time off afterwards to finally get it addressed. But what my favorite part of this whole switch, right, that happened that they're playing on is Rock really, like you said, when he's given something, he goes all out. The final boss character that he created was awesome. Absolutely fantastic. And his social media postings and everything that he did were unbelievable. There was one where he did an old Nintendo type game where you had Cody and Seth going through and beating all these wrestlers up and getting there, and then all of a sudden gets the final boss and he just drops fire on them and burns the shit out of them. And it was so his social media game was next level on this. It was fantastic.
Oh no, look, when The Rock gets his creative team and people on a roll and they find an angle, they're gonna run. And it just reminded me of those days when he was the hot guy and he was in feuds with people and those Rock and Austin and Rock and Triple H matches and stuff, but it was so good. And it's like, oh man, this guy's still got it. He's still got it.
Yeah. And talk just briefly about the night 1 main event. There was a spot in that match that was probably my favorite of the whole night, in which Roman Reigns nailed The Rock with a spear, and The Rock selling of that was the greatest thing I've seen. It was Shawn Michaels Hulk Hogan level selling. It was so good. Yes. It was so good.
Well, I mean, I don't know if anybody ever sold a stunner the way The Rock sold those back in the day. Do full kip ups afterwards and stuff. It's wild. But I love again though that they're going to set this up where it's obviously going to be bloodline rules the second night. Why would it not be, right?
Yeah.
But I was surprised. I wasn't surprised that The Rock got the pin because like Rock's got to get the pin. Because Roman didn't need it. Yeah. But Cody ate the pin. I was like, ooh, I thought they would make Seth eat the pin because it didn't matter to him. Ooh, they're going to make Cody eat a pin. And what it does, though, now is it plants that seed again of like, maybe they're going to screw him one more time.
Absolutely. And it even still, that maybe The Rock and Cody has some beef down the road, too, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
great
as
stuff.
We'll see. Maybe. So,
maybe.
Well, we're WrestleMania 40 here, Brian. It's April 6th and 7th, just over a year later. We're at Lincoln Financial Field this time, home of the Philadelphia Eagles. That's for the booze to come in. Yeah, right. Complete outdoor stadium. So WWE rolling the dice on the weather. Philly in April, it can be really cold. It can be nice. It can be rainy.
And it was rolled the dice and they lost.
They lost bad. Yeah, it was terrible. Terrible cold weather, but in true Philly fan fashion, man, everybody shows up. Poor Samantha Irvin, I think, got it worse than anybody because she's in this great, like prom dress situation. She's up there freezing to death both nights, but giving it her all as she is wont to do. They dodged a little bit of the rain, but it's not both nights. It was pretty rough, man. Second time WrestleMania's been in Philly. They were there for 15 in 1999. I remember that one wasn't there for it, but we were watching it. And it was a hot crowd then. Attendance for night one is 60,036, and night two is 60,203. So combined 120,239. WWE claims 72,000 both nights, but actual was in the 60. But still, it's a macked crowd in Lincoln Financial. You can't get more people than that. Variety reported, and this is the entertainment magazine Variety, by the way. This tells you how big wrestling is right now. That the ticket revenue was up 78% from the previous year. And viewership was up 41%. Merch sales were up 20%. So I had to look into this. I was like, how can the gate be that much with less people going, right? Well, how are we doing this? The cheapest ticket for WrestleMania night one was $217. Night two, you could actually get cheap tickets for $196 if you didn't buy them ahead of time or way ahead of time. $39, night one was $67, night two was $84. So there's your bump.
Yeah, and that's 78%. That's crazy money.
Dude. And you're talking about you're in the upper decks watching that at that point. You're watching the Jumbotron and hoping you see something in the ring as it's going down. But hey, the fans were out and they were out in droves. Our entrance is very similar to last year. Cody's got on a different set of gear, but it's the same motif, all the stuff. Roman doesn't come out with necessarily the orchestra this time, but it's still the same thing. Roman confidently, somewhat angrily making his way down there to the ring. And I made comparisons in part one that it played out a lot like the original Rocky, where our hero doesn't win but gets respect, right? This one plays out a lot like Rocky 2. If you remember the plot of Rocky 2, Rocky's not really ready for the fight. He's got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of people doubting him whether he can really do it or not. He's got a major injury he's trying to overcome or trying to hide and get around. He's got, his own people in his corner against him. He's got to deal with self-doubt. He's being kept at bay by forces he can't control. But once he's in it, he's all in it. So he gets ready. And Roman is a lot like Creed. He's pissed because everybody says the only reason you won is because you had all that help. And he's like, no, I'm going to go beat this guy to the end. I'm going to beat him so bad he's never going to come back. And he's talking all the smack and some of the best Roman promos leading up to this we've ever heard. But when he's in the ring here to the beginning of this, the match is going to play out eerily similar than the last time. The time's almost the same, all the stuff. But Roman looks much more angry this time around. And I thought that was a neat twist. And it's just fun how the WWE borrows from such well-known Hollywood stuff and it works.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's angry, but that's perfect for the storyline because he finished Cody. Why does he need to wrestle him again? Now he's taking his big money match against The Rock, and he's thrown that out the window. So him being pissed was perfect for this.
Oh, it totally was. And, again, The Rock had shown deference. He had, raised the finger. I acknowledge you, acknowledge me, that the new Roman Reigns thing in the year. And I don't know, it was always like Willy Wonky, and again, they danced around it a lot. And, I don't know, Brian, like who's to know when they finally made the call or whatever. I do think that the fan turning was a big part of it, but I also think the way the fans went for the fact that the final boss was going to be this ultimate heel also led them to go like, no, we can go this way.
They did the documentary, right? And if you haven't watched it, it's a really fun watch, but I take that with a grain of salt. I highly doubt that they knew they wanted The Rock versus Roman in October. It just no. And they wouldn't have had to tell Cody that he was out of the match if that were the case, because he should have already known that, right? Yeah, this was a spur of the moment thing. The Rock came out, he got that huge ovation from the crowd, and he thought, maybe they got something here. You know, we were supposed to do this 2 years ago, and I bailed on it. So, but I'm here now. Maybe I can, we could do it now. No. So I don't buy the fact that they changed plans. I think they did it to appease Rock, right? The Rock wants this match finally. We have him here actually to do it. I mean, might as well take advantage of it. But then they got that backlash and thought, maybe that's not the best idea, right?
Well,
maybe we can. And Rock's part of the board now. Maybe he'll come back next year.
And to Rock's credit too, and even though he'll ultimately always take more credit for it than maybe he really involved, he saw like, oh, you know what? If I go and become, when he created Final Boss, when he decided that and he saw the way that went over, he's like, it's a lot more fun to play the bad guy. So I'm just going to do that again. And I think he leaned into that because it was like, okay, y'all are going to pop either way. I'm going to have some fun because, he's got to go do movies after this. He's literally gone 2 days after this, event because he's got to go back to Hollywood. And he's not gone for good, though. He lets everybody know that, but he's not around for very long. So he's going to make the most of his time.
Yeah, my favorite part, too, is that he pissed off so many people with this character because he was swearing up a storm every chance he got, dropping
the social media
on
promos
TV.
He would cut. Well, I mean, even the social media promos were just, I mean, he doesn't care. He's going to do whatever. But yeah, you're right, man. The censors on Fox, on SmackDown were hitting the dump button. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, it's almost like he invented the dump button for Fox because it's gotten worse and worse as we progress this year. But my God, that was fantastic. He got a few that go through the censors, which I thought was hilarious. But yeah, I really enjoyed the Final Boss character that he came up with. And if you're not going to give him the match he wants, this was a perfect way to utilize him and really build the WrestleMania as they did.
Yeah, and we talked about night one and how it finished. So night two is going to be this schmoz in the ring at some point, and the speculation began: who's going to show up for Cody? Who's last year it was KO and Sammy. Who's coming down this year? Who's going to an appearance? You got to figure we're going to get Jey Uso going to come down because him and Jimmy been at odds. They even had a match in this card, so they're going to go at it at some point. Who else is going to come out from yesteryear before? And as we'll see, they pulled some interesting surprises out of the bag.
They did, and it was good. We'll talk about the surprises. I have some thoughts on those myself, but we'll get there. Let's get into the match while we're here, right? This one, we got Cole, Pat McAfee, and Corey Graves on commentary, so almost the same team. Commentator Ed McAfee here, and then Charles Robinson's our referee for this one. So Angle was the referee last year, and this year it's Charles Robinson, who I affectionately always refer to as Little H from the WCW days. So, love Charles Robinson.
He's good.
I love how they started again. They did the exact same start as last year, staring each other down. And Roman does the same thing again. He turns around and he starts shaking his head like he doesn't have it again this year. They do it a little different, though. They immediately go outside the ring and just start having a Pier 6 brawl, as Gorilla Monsoon liked to put it.
Oh, yeah. Look, we're getting thrown through tables early, and Cody's doing all this heel stuff early. He's hitting him with chairs. He's like, well, fine, if we're going to do this way, then I'm going to get down and play dirty too. And you forget, and unless you just pay attention, Cody's been a heel a couple times in his career. In fact, he's pretty nasty heel when he wants to be. So it's like, okay, but I think there's something in the babyface going over stories that almost all of them at some point have to find the heel touch to make it work. They have to retaliate a little bit. The only one that I've seen that never really did it was Ricky Steamboat. But he was just such a dude that they couldn't do it. But he would go outside and would, throw Flair around, in the dark rings and stuff like that. But I mean, Sting would grab a chair and hit people, and all of it. Would Hogan would get dirty. Ventura had loved calling Hogan out, like, "There's being dirty there again, Monsoon," And so I love that Cody's like, "Okay, fine. You want to play that way? We're going to play that way." And for a little while it works, but then Roman gets back up on it quick, and when he gets that low blow on him, when he power bombs him through the table, I was like, oh, now we're going to go for some vicious spots this year. And early on, I'm like going, wow, for a bloodline rules, there's no interference. It's just Roman and Cody beating the crap out of each other.
Yeah, and they kept it that way for quite some time, which was great. I thought, I was really happy with it. I figured that the Bloodline would be down almost immediately.
Yeah.
Because they had free reign here, and yet they didn't do that, and they didn't do that for quite some time into this match. This was just an all-out massacre of each other with weapons, with everything, and I really, really liked that they made this match different from the year before. You could go back to the year before and you could do all the hits and try and recreate that match. They went totally opposite on this one. This one was complete like hardcore rules and everything else.
Well, again, I'm going back to my Rocky references, but it's just a good point of view for this kind of stuff. In the first Rocky gets the drop on Apollo early, and then they go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, until it's decision. Well, in Rocky 2, Rocky gets pummeled early. And then he just decides, I'm never going down again. And they beat the absolute crap out of each other for the next 10 minutes. And it's the same thing here. I'm like, yep, this is Rocky 2. Like, you got to beat the stew out of each other before we start getting interference.
Yeah, and I was very pleasantly surprised with that. You mentioned the Usos got to get involved, right? So they're the first ones to get involved. Crossroads early in the match. Jimmy comes out, and Jay comes out to take him out, right? So we start the cavalcade of interference, or I guess you could say surprise appearance.
Well, before even the surprises happen, we've got the Bloodline stuff going. I got to give this is a great spot. Cody and Roman wind up outside again, and Cody spears Roman through the barricade. Which, how many times have you seen Roman do that to somebody? I was like, wow, that was a spot, boys. That was good.
What I liked about this too is that they used each other's finishers on each other in this match, right? Roman hits a Crossroads on Cody.
I love the comedy of him going like, that move sucks. That move don't beat anybody.
No wonder I didn't win.
Exactly. I love that.
That was great. And then spear by Cody in the match, like you said. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was just absolutely fantastically done. I always like it when two wrestlers can use each other's moves and it just doesn't work for the other wrestler, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't work.
I didn't do it right.
Can't do it right.
Yeah, no, but I love that Roman is talking all that trash because it's just letting that personality come out. It's just so much fun, But then it's time for the cavalcade of run-ins to begin.
Yes, we get the repeat of the previous finish where Cody hits 2 Crossroads, and on the third one, guess who's there? Solo comes out, hits him with the spike. Roman hits that spear again, but this time, Cody kicks out. The facial expression from Solo Sikoa on that was absolutely fantastic. And awesome. The best part is he goes back to start beating the crap out of Cody, and he's yelling at Roman to finish it, pin him, get it over with, right? And that is beautiful, beautiful foreshadowing of what we're in right now with the Solo Sikoa storyline, but just wonderful stuff.
Oh, they have rolled out Solo Sikoa so well over 2 years here, man. Yeah. I mean, it's been perfect the way they've pushed him into where he is now and the spot he's in. But I love this moment because, like you say, you're starting to build that fracture and all of this, and the fact that we did it last year just like this, and it didn't work this time. Cody's learned something. He got out of it, And I got to give credit here too. And I'm not a big fan of his, but Cole and McAfee and Graves, and I'm not a fan of McAfee, to be clear, they are putting this over big time. They are selling it so good together.
The commentary for both these matches was absolutely fantastic. They really knew how to pick the spots to build the story, to put the match over in space. Now, the cavalcade's going to continue because guess who comes out, Jay? Who comes out?
Oh, we can't even see him. John Cena.
John Cena comes out to help with Solo. what the heck?
Well, you know what that's going to mean, though, because so he comes down, a couple of attitude adjustments, people through some tables, but then you know what that means. It's time for the final boss, because who's seen as ultimate? That'd be The Rock.
That would be The Rock.
So here comes The Rock. We get a little Rock, but I love too. They did the two like look both ways, different of each other, like they used to do. And then of course we get the Rock Bottom, which finishes off Cena. But then we get the Shield music hitting. And you talk about social media exploding, man. I had seen all the wild rumors that week. We're like, okay, so obviously Seth's going to get involved in some way. But wouldn't it be wild if Dean Ambrose, a.k.a. John Moxley, swung back for a night, just one time? I didn't think it was actually going to happen, but for a minute, you didn't know because everybody's looking up in the crowd, right? Because that was the Shield used to come down through the crowd. And here comes good old Seth limping along, bless his heart, with that chair. But who's there to save? Roman with the Superman punch. Lays his old buddy out. It won't be the last time, but he's got him. So The Rock is safe. And The Rock thinks, okay, fine. So he gets the belt. He's going to start whooping up. Look at what I'm going to do to you, boy. Mama Rhodes, you ready to watch your boy get whooped again? He's talking all the trash, dropping all the F-bombs. It's coming through clear. And then what happens, Brian?
Then the lights drop, and guess what? We hear the bell toll, and the Undertaker appears behind The Rock, and it's fantastic. Like the Undertaker, his facials here, that he's so pissed off, he's twitching his lip and everything, fantastically done, just great. Not in his Undertaker gear, which I loved, so he's pleased. Mark Calloway, right? Out there, and Rock does perfect. He turns around, notices him, gets a nice choke slam for his time, and the fans get a huge pop because here's Undertaker at WrestleMania again. It was so good. So well done.
Well, you're talking about the guy that had the streak at WrestleMania, and it was such a thing. And he put on hell of shows, for years during that run. And I love the fact that he didn't come back in the Undertaker gear. When he retired, he put that hat in the ring, and that was it. Yeah. He's just Mark Calloway. It's just, I'm back to screw you one more time, Rock. and I loved that they had that. Because honestly, and I know they just couldn't make it work. It in my head, it should have been Steve Austin. But I get why it's the Undertaker because you can go either way on that. I would have loved it if it would have been Austin, but it's almost like you have too many big splash entrances because Austin doesn't have a quiet entrance. That glass breaks, and whereas you dropped in lights, and all of a sudden, like, you know what that means. It's not going to be Kane, so it's definitely going to be Undertaker, and so it's just as good. But I love that choke slam. I love the way he pops and then drops the lights, and he's gone again. That's just the way it should be.
Yep, and I agree with you. Austin would have been a better foil for Rock, but I wasn't upset that was the Undertaker. I thought they did a good job with this. It was a lot of a time between when the interference started and when it ended here. A lot of time for Cody and Roman to kind of catch their breath, and then Roman has a chair in the ring, and he starts sizing up Cody to get him with the chair and finish this match. But then out of the corner of his eye, he sees something. He sees Seth Rollins stirring again, and Seth Rollins getting up, and it reminds him, a few years back, Seth Rollins turned on me this same way. So Roman turns and nails Seth in the back the same exact way Seth nailed him when he turned on the Shield, and Seth's reaction was perfect. He did the same thing that Roman did, and it was just really good, and it really sold the fact that Roman forgot why he was there in the first place and was taking out revenge, and that cost him ultimately the match.
Well, that's the thing is, what would be the thing that would finally undo the head of the table, the tribal chief? Good old revenge, because 10 years ago, this guy broke us up, me, Dean, and you, with chair shots when we weren't looking. Yeah. And to pay that off, now they didn't plan that out over 10 years, let's be real. But when they realized, like, oh, we could do that here, like, and that is some Triple H stuff right there. That's him going like, hey, boys, remember? And they're like, and that's smart agenting, that's smart story, and it tells the right story because at this point, Cody has been beaten to death. Like there really can't be much left in the tank, right? So you got to have some way for him to get back on top of Roman, and nobody do anything to Roman. It's got to be clean, right? So distraction is how we're going to do it. He lays Rollins out. Roman goes for the spear, but Cody's ready. Spins him, 3 Crossroads, and then, man, it's probably in the top 5 of Michael Cole calls. On the 1, 2, 3, it's finished the story. Boom, and the bell hits. That was well done.
That was awesome, and the crowd got what they wanted. They popped massively for Cody Rhodes winning the belt. And at this point now, we mentioned in the last episode that both you and I were excited that Cody lost. But at this point, it was like, it's got to be Cody, right?
Yeah, you earned
it.
Yeah.
I feel like over the last year, he actually finally earned that spot. And so at this point, I'm cheering for it. I thought it was great. I couldn't see them screwing him again. It would have been interesting had they done that. However, the right move was to give Cody this belt and then see how it goes. And that's what we get. The story's finished. Roman's done. He's leaving now, right? Mm-hmm. He's gone. He's not going to be back. As we record this, he's still not back. Mm-mm. But just kind of a good way to finally cap this 2-year-long epic story. Just wild.
You have all of that happen. You know, Samantha Irvin, who's halfway crying, calling it out in the final there. You bring down that whole bunch of people to the ring. It's like all the forest creatures are finally able to come out because the evil witch is dead.
It's like when Sting beat Hogan at Starrcade 97. They all came and raised him up in the ring. That's what we're doing with Cody here. The man has finally been beat after 3.5 years as champion.
Right. Well, but it is a lot of people say, is the signifying beginning of the Triple H era. Like, for sure. Because this show, this whole run from January till now has got his hands all over it. And you can tell. And besides just the main event, WrestleMania 40, WrestleMania 39 was a good show. WrestleMania 40 was an awesome show. I mean, there really weren't bad things going on the whole show. So they really outdid themselves. And again, to be in a place where the weather's not exactly great this night either. Like, it's really much nicer indoors. But, they pull this out and you see Roman go away. And I mean, you have to look for it on the stuff that's on Peacock now because they've kind of re-edited some of it. But in the live, you saw Roman and Paul embrace at the top of the ramp, because they'd been on this ride together. That's a long time. It's like being on tour for 3 years. It's like, wow, it's finally over. Wow. And like you say, Roman's taking time off as of our recording here. Solo is taking over the bloodline. And Cody's just wading through dudes. He's kind of doing the Rocky 3, just a bunch of dudes. I'm just going to beat everybody now, And so, but he's having some fun doing it, and he's living up to what he said was that title was going to be on TV. It was going to get defended at the PLEs. Like, you're going to see the champion out there doing stuff.
Yeah, well, which is a big change, as we noted last time. 54 matches, not even defenses of the title in a 3.5-year reign. So Cody's already defended it. It seems like more than Roman did in the year previous. So it's just crazy. Like you mentioned, Roman's gone. Cody's the champion. Solo Sikoa has taken over the bloodline. Paul Heyman has been pretty much removed from the bloodline now because he wouldn't acknowledge Solo as the tribal chief. Yep. And we're looking forward to potential bloodline civil war coming up. That's the story everyone's expecting. So we'll see once Roman actually returns to the ring. By the time you get this episode, he may have returned by then. He may not have. We'll have to wait and see. But not a lot to go through on the aftermath because we're still in it.
Yeah,
right?
we are
still here.
I'll tell you, like, my fantasy book is that he does come back, and we have bloodline civil war, and we lead to him and Solo, on one night of WrestleMania, and The Rock comes back, and we get Rock and Cody on, the other night.
Man, I don't know, man. I really think that Rock and Roman want to have that match before Rock can't have that match anymore. Fair. Or even Roman. I mean, Roman's taken some beatings. There's a reason he didn't wrestle a whole lot while he was champion. And that's because he's been injured and ailing the whole time. So
we should also say he survived leukemia multiple times.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. But I don't know. The Rock and Cody would be a sexy match on paper, but I really think that they want to have and give that Rock and Roman. I want the Rock to side with Solo in the Bloodline feud, and Roman and the Usos on the other side, and let's have that, and then ultimately come to The Rock saying, I'm the head of the table, and have that feud. I don't know. Maybe your booking is right.
What about this? Roman comes back and he and Cody team up to take on Solo and The Rock.
I don't know that I want to see that necessarily.
I mean, not at Mania, but in the lead up to what becomes Mania. Because I think Roman's coming back. He's going to be. I mean, he's over as hell anyway. I think he's going to come back as a face.
My thoughts on this are going to be are this: you're going to have Solo, you're going to have the Tama, you're going to have Jacob Fatu and the other guy. Those four are going to be made up of the Bloodline current, right? And then you got Cody and the Usos, right? They need a third member. Sami Zayn, baby.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sami's an honorary Us.
Yeah.
Bring him back in for that feud. And then you got the face team's obviously going to be Roman, and the heel team's going to be Solo. And then you bring The Rock back right around that, Survivor Series Royal Rumble time to turn on Roman and declare that he's the head of the table and go there. But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. I don't want to see Roman Cody 3.
No.
Just like I didn't really want to see Brock and Roman 85.
No, we got it anyway. But
I think we're good on that storyline, but it's going to be fun. I think that night 1 of WrestleMania should be the Bloodline, and night 2 should be whatever Cody's got going on.
Yeah, I think Cody is keeping this belt to WrestleMania. Though fantasy and book in my head is for before SummerSlam. It'd be kind of wild if he dropped it real quick and had to get it back up. But I don't think they'll do it. I think they
don't think they should.
Much. Yeah, it would be too much of. It's one thing to like have the belt never out there, and it's another thing to start putting it out there more, and then it's another thing to start hot shotting it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. That's what we have all these other titles for. Do that stuff, which they don't do, but we could.
Right.
So
if
they want to do that, they can do that somewhere else. So
yeah, and I think that you put the World Championship on a heel, maybe Gunther at SummerSlam, whatever. Mm-hmm. You put the World Championship on a heel and have that one be the title chase, and you let Cody be the WWE. The WWE's always been a face territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you let Cody be the WWE face guy champion and let him take on all challengers and really kind of build him up before he finally drops it to whoever they want to put it on at that point. But I think that you let Cody, he earned the title and let him have it for a while, and then you can move on.
I think what's neat is even in the process of doing this podcast, we've been able to revisit how we evolved on Cody as, watchers and having known him and watched him for a long time, known his persona and stuff like that. And we both were like, the first time around, like, nah, it's not time for this dude yet. No, I want him to go down. And when he does, we're like excited about it. And then when he finally goes over, we're just as excited about it. Like that's that's really good storytelling. It shows you how this can be done and done right.
And it shows you how much he put effort into making people believe that he was this main event guy. Yeah, you're a main eventer on the indies, right? But that doesn't necessarily translate when you come into the WWE. And that's why there was such backlash to Cody getting this shot so soon after being back in the WWE. It was a year, but even so, he wasn't portrayed as that main event guy until you get to Royal Rumble 2023, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, that whole year he spent building himself up as he could be a top guy, and you believed it then the second time around. You believed that he should and could win that match, and it would be okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the hot shot college football player that comes from a known school, but not one anybody thinks is on the same level as like the big time ones, right? And winds up in the NFL, and you're like, well, I don't know if this guy's that good or not, and then they go out there and they earn it. It's like, okay, no, you actually earned your spot. It's the same kind of story, and that's what makes it interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but wow. Well, we've got a few of these under our belt here now on the Main Event Maniacs. Want to say shout out again to our buddy Juice Springsteen and the Juice Box for letting us have this avenue and to talk to you all about these things. You can follow Juice on Twitter X at Juicy Steen, on Instagram at Juicy Wrestling Closet, and subscribe on YouTube at Juicy Steen. Wherever you find this podcast, Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, go ahead and hit that subscribe so you don't ever miss an episode of not only this show, but the regular Juice Box, Triple Threat Theater, all the PLE prediction shows, which are always absolutely fun. Leave a rating, share the show on your socials. We appreciate the support. And Brian, we're just getting rolling here on Main Event Maniacs.
We are, and I'm excited for the next couple of episodes that we have planned for this show. Some of these matches I haven't seen in years, and I'm looking forward to it. Not a lot of stuff we have planned I haven't seen at all, believe it or not.
Same.
And so I'm excited to go through some of that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you want to follow Jay or I on social media, you can follow me at Brian Thomas 878, or you can follow Jay at JRan here. Hit us up if you want to talk about the show. Send us a DM, whatever you want to do. Love to hear your opinion on the shows. I got a suggestion? Send it to us. Let us know what main event you want to hear covered on Main Event Maniacs.
Absolutely. Until next time, for Brian, I'm Jay. This has been your main event.
That was The Juice Box with Juice Springsteen. Make sure to subscribe to The Juice Box wherever you listen to podcasts.